Welcome to Books in Brief, where we explore the key ideas of great books and how to understand them in everyday life. Think about the absolute smartest thing you could possibly do today to understand yourself and the reality around you.
You would probably think the answer is reading more, right?
Exactly. Learning more facts, maybe picking up a complex new skill. But what if the ultimate cheat code to reality wasn't acquiring more knowledge, but actively unlearning everything you think you already know?
Which is, a pretty wild concept to wrap your head around.
It really is.
No.
Today we are testing that paradox as we embark on a deep dive into the Book of Not Knowing, exploring the true nature of self, mind, and consciousness by Peter Ralston. We are going to dismantle the everyday assumptions you hold about who you are.
It sounds completely counterintuitive at first, you know. We spend our entire lives trying to accumulate knowledge.
Right, from the time we are in kindergarten.
Yeah, exactly. We operate on this assumption that, well, that more information naturally equates to more wisdom. But our conversation today is going to guide you through a journey from what the book calls our fabricated conceptual self to our authentic being.
And that is a huge leap to make.
It is a massive leap. And the only way to successfully make that journey is by embracing the profound and honestly often very uncomfortable state of not knowing.
Okay, let's unpack this, because before we can get to our authentic nature, we have to figure out why the idea of unlearning feels so deeply terrifying.
It really does scare people.
It terrifies them. I mean, we live in a society that is completely obsessed with knowing. It seems like having an answer, even if it is a wrong answer, is prized way above simply admitting you don't know.
Oh, absolutely.
So why is our culture so terrified of the unknown?
Well, it fundamentally comes down to survival. And that is the cultural matrix we are all born into.
Survival, like physically.
Yes, if you look at this from an evolutionary perspective, humanity has been conditioned for millions of years to immediately categorize and judge our environment.
Okay, right.
Imagine early humans walking into a clearing. They see a shape moving in the bushes. They needed to instantly know what it was.
Is it a predator that will eat me, or is it prey that I can eat?
Exactly. It was a completely binary choice. Ignorance in that environment was literally a fatal defect.
Right, you couldn't afford to stand there and be curious.
No, you couldn't be uncertain. You had to label things instantly just to stay alive.
Right, it was the ultimate binary choice of physical survival. But, I mean, most of us aren't dodging predators in the bushes anymore, right?
No, we aren't. But that ancient survival instinct, it hasn't disappeared. It has simply morphed into a drive for social and psychological survival.
Wow, okay.
We still instantly categorize people, situations, and even ourselves. We hastily adopt cultural beliefs just to fill the terrifying void of the unknown.
Because not knowing still feels like a physical threat to our nervous system.
Exactly. Your body reacts as if there is a tiger in the room. And the problem is, we start mistaking these adopted secondhand beliefs for genuine personal experiences. We paste our concepts over the world, completely cutting ourselves off from actual reality.
If we are constantly pasting concepts over reality, it reminds me of a fantastic anecdote from the book about a math student named Susan.
Oh, the drawing class story. Yes.
Right, so she was an apprentice taking a drawing class, and in the first few weeks, the instructor asked the class to draw a simple basket of fruit.
Which seems pretty basic.
You would think so, but Susan's drawings were, well, they were terrible.
She was a math student, to be fair.
True. But she was drawing flat circles for apples and strange ovals for grapes. It looked like a child's cartoon, not real fruit, and she was getting incredibly frustrated.
It is a perfect example of what happens when concepts override perception.
Yeah.
What did the instructor do to fix it?
He did something brilliant. He set up another still life, but this time he covered the objects completely with a sheet of white muslin.
So they couldn't see what they were drawing.
Exactly. Susan and the class had to draw the mysterious draped shapes without having any idea what was underneath the sheet.
And what happened?
Suddenly, Susan drew perfectly.
Wow.
Yeah, she captured the subtle shading, the depth, the interplay of light and shadow. The instructor pointed out that previously she couldn't draw the apple because her brain was drawing her generic concept of an apple.
Right, the idea of an apple.
Yeah, rather than actually looking at the curves and light that were right in front of her. When the sheet forced her into a state of not knowing, she finally saw reality.
That's an important point. She was no longer superimposing her preconceived knowledge onto the object.
Exactly.
What's fascinating here is that this exact same principle applies to the greatest leaps in human understanding throughout history.
Really? Like who?
Think about geniuses like Albert Einstein or Galileo. They didn't achieve their massive breakthroughs just by rearranging the existing facts of their eras.
Right, they weren't just reading more books.
No, they achieved them precisely because they were able to bypass cultural assumptions. They had to step entirely outside the established knowledge of their time.
To see the shape under the sheet, basically.
Yes. The book emphasizes that a true insight isn't just coming up with a clever new idea to add to your collection.
Okay.
Insight is a sudden, authentic experience of reality. And that experience can only arise from a blank slate of genuine not knowing. If your cup is already full of beliefs, there is absolutely no room for discovery.
Wow, that is profound. But, if Susan was entirely blind to an apple because her brain was automatically pasting a generic concept over it, it makes me wonder what my brain is doing when I look in the mirror.
That is the big question.
Right. Like, are we doing that exact same thing to our own identities? Are we just pasting a concept over ourselves?
They absolutely are. That is the
Yeah.
core premise of the book, and it is a deeply challenging one to sit with.
I bet.
The reality is, we don't actually know our origins.
What do you mean by origins?
Well, if you try to remember the exact moment your self-awareness began,
Yeah.
you can't. You can't pinpoint where your consciousness comes from.
Oh, right. Like my earliest memory is just a fuzzy image.
Exactly. Because we do not have a direct conscious experience of how we came to exist, we feel a deep, unsettling void. It is a fundamental emptiness.
That sounds terrifying.
It is. So to fix this discomfort, the mind invents what the book calls a conceptual self.
So we basically build an avatar to hide the void.
That is exactly it.
Think about how we build a LinkedIn profile or curate an Instagram feed today. You take past memories, achievements, a few specific character traits, and you stitch them together to present a cohesive identity to the world.
Right, a highlight reel.
Yeah, you are curating a concept of who you are. The book is arguing that we are doing this exact same curation internally 24 hours a day just to convince ourselves we exist as a concrete entity. We are constantly writing a never-ending story of me.
That is a very accurate analogy. We take our memories, our cultural conditioning, our social positioning, our emotional reactions, and we glue them together into a noun.
And now,
Yes, we call that noun me. And then we spend the rest of our lives defending that invention.
wait a second, let me push back on that. Everything in our culture tells us that finding who we are and building a strong self-identity is the ultimate goal of a healthy life.
Sure, that is the common narrative.
We go to therapy to find ourselves. We take personality tests to define ourselves. Are we saying that knowing myself in that conceptual way is actually the thing causing me harm? What do you think?
This raises an important question, and it requires us to look at the mechanism of how this self operates.
Okay, how does it operate?
The issue is that because this conceptual self is an invention, and it is entirely based on the drive for self-survival, it locks us into a defensive posture
Defensive against what?
against anything that challenges the invention. The book outlines 5 inevitable, painful consequences of living from this conceptual self.
And they are.
Emptiness, self-doubt, feeling trapped, suffering, and struggle. Let's walk through why these happen. We experience emptiness because deep down, no matter how great your resume or your identity is, you subconsciously sense the void beneath the concepts.
Right, because there is no solid thing there,
Exactly. It is just an idea.
which naturally leads to the second consequence, self-doubt. Because if I'm the one who secretly invented the identity of being, say, the smart, reliable person, a part of me knows it is an artifice.
Yes, you know you made it up.
It's a performance. That sounds exactly like the root cause of imposter syndrome.
Precisely. You doubt yourself because you know you're playing a character.
Yeah,
And that leads to the third consequence, which is feeling trapped.
tracked by our own character.
Yes. Let's say you define your conceptual self as the responsible one who never makes mistakes. Your brain creates a rigid set of rules to protect that identity.
So I literally can't afford to mess up.
The mechanism of survival kicks in, meaning you literally cannot allow yourself to make a mistake without feeling an existential threat. You become a prisoner to the very character traits you invented. You lose all flexibility in how you respond to life.
Wow, that sounds exhausting.
It is incredibly draining.
Which explains the final two consequences, suffering and struggle. We are basically exhausted from keeping up the act.
Because reality is constantly changing and fluid, but our conceptual self is rigid.
So we're always struggling to force reality to match our concepts.
Exactly.
If that rigid identity is the trap, we must figure out how our daily perception keeps the lock turned on that trap. How does the way we view the world keep us stuck in this illusion?
To understand how we stay trapped, we have to look at the mechanics of perception. The book breaks this down into three distinct levels.
Okay, let's hear them.
Naturally, as humans, we perceive absolutely everything in what is called the for me state.
For me.
Yes, in a fraction of a second, we instantly judge how an object, a person, or an event affects our personal survival or our social standing.
So it always comes back to me.
Always. A passing comment from a friend isn't just sound waves hitting your ear. It is immediately translated into a threat or a compliment, for me. Your perception is entirely filtered through the lens of how things impact your conceptual self.
I am struggling with this a bit, practically speaking. To break out of the for me state, the book suggests we practice perceiving things for itself, which means observing something completely independent of its utility to us.
Right.
But if I try to look at a chair for itself, completely stripping away my human need to sit on it or its aesthetic value to my living room, isn't it just meaningless wood and fabric?
You feel like it loses its purpose.
Yeah.
Mm.
How is stripping away meaning supposed to help me achieve true being? That sounds a lot like nihilism to me.
That is a very common misconception, but it is not nihilism.
It isn't.
No. Nihilism is the belief that nothing matters and existence is inherently empty. Perceiving something for itself is about recognizing that the object has its own reality outside of your selfish needs.
Oh, I see.
When you strip away the for me filter, you aren't left with nothing. You are left with the actual vibrant reality of the thing as it exists in the universe. It is about respect for reality, not the destruction of meaning.
That makes a lot more sense.
And that leads to the ultimate highest goal the book describes, which is as itself. This is the direct consciousness of being, completely free from the filter of perception entirely.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because looking for our true being, that as itself state, is incredibly difficult due to the very mechanics of how our awareness functions.
It is a biological hurdle.
Yeah, the book uses a profound analogy of an eye trying to see itself. Think about a physical eye. It is designed to look outward and gather light.
Right.
An eye cannot turn around and look directly at itself. The only way it can see itself is by looking into a mirror.
But when it looks in a mirror, it isn't seeing the eye.
Exactly. It is only seeing a reflection.
That is a perfect way to visualize the problem of self-inquiry. Our awareness is exactly like that eye. It is inherently designed to look outward.
So when we try to look inside,
When we try to turn our awareness inward to find ourselves, we cannot look directly at our own being. We only perceive the reflections in the mirror.
and what are those reflections?
They are our beliefs, our emotions, our passing thoughts, and our memories. We look at those reflections and mistakenly say, ah, that is me. We mistake the reflection for the source.
We confuse the moving images in the mirror with the mirror itself. The book makes a crucial linguistic distinction here that really helped me grasp this.
About the nouns and verbs.
Yes, self is a noun. It is a conceptual construct, a static thing we have built out of those reflections. Being, on the other hand, is not a noun. It is a verb.
It simply is.
Yes, it simply is. It exists prior to any concept or label.
Exactly. But bridging the gap from self to being is an uphill battle because the mind is inherently designed to protect the mind.
It doesn't want to be unlearned.
No, the conceptual self wants to survive. This means your internal narrative is constantly working to validate your illusions. If you actually start to question the reality of your identity, your mind will generate anxiety, heavy distraction, or even intense defensive anger to stop you from looking too closely.
Just to get you to stop looking.
It perceives that deep questioning as a literal threat to its survival.
Wow, it is exactly like a high-tech security system designed to keep us locked inside our own assumptions.
That is a great way to put it.
So if our minds are constantly tricking us, generating fake anxiety to protect a conceptual avatar, how do we hack the system? How can you practically step out of this illusion and into true being?
Well, the book provides a practical framework for this through 4 principles of discovery.
Okay, let's hear them.
They are authentic experience, honesty, grounded openness, and questioning. It is very important to note that contemplation in the context of this book is not framed as a relaxing, peaceful meditation where you sit cross-legged and just clear your mind.
So no Zen music and incense.
No, not at all. Contemplation is a relentless, active, and sometimes grueling process. It requires you to dig down to the absolute bottom-line motivations of your behavior.
Let's walk through these 4 principles so we can see how they actually work.
First is authentic experience. This means committing to experiencing what is actually happening rather than your story about what is happening.
Right, reality over concepts.
Next is honesty, which requires a radical, often painful level of truthfulness. You have to admit when you are just trying to be right, or when you're just trying to protect your ego rather than seeking the actual truth.
That is definitely painful. And the third principle is grounded openness. What does that actually look like in practice?
Grounded openness means cultivating the ability to relax into the void. When you realize you don't have an answer, instead of panicking and grabbing the nearest cultural belief to feel safe, you just stay there.
You just sit in the discomfort.
You keep your feet on the ground, and you remain completely open to the discomfort of not knowing. You allow the blank slate to just be blank.
And the final one.
And finally, there is questioning. This isn't just asking idle questions. It is a relentless interrogation of your assumptions. It requires the deep courage to strip away your justifications and finally admit, I don't actually know what this is, and I don't know who I am.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? I mean, how do you actually practice not knowing during your everyday life without just walking around totally confused and detached?
It takes practice.
Let's ground this in a real-world scenario. Imagine you are in a meeting and a coworker heavily criticizes a project you've been working on for months.
Which happens all the time.
Right. Normally, your heart rate spikes, your face gets hot, and you immediately start arguing back. How do you apply these 4 principles in that exact moment?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the practical application becomes incredibly transformative. It is all about catching yourself in the act of interpretation.
Catching the for me filter.
Yes. In that meeting, when your coworker criticizes you, you feel a massive surge of anger and defensive fear. In that split second, your for me survival mechanism has kicked in. Your conceptual self, the identity that says, I am a smart, competent employee, feels like it is being murdered.
Right, the security system alarms are blaring.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So how do you practice not knowing? First, you use honesty. You admit to yourself, I am reacting this way because my ego feels threatened, not because I am in physical danger.
That is a tough pill to swallow.
It is. Then you practice grounded openness. Instead of attacking the coworker or shutting down, you step back internally. You strip away the assigned value or meaning of the event.
How so?
You stop the internal narrative that says, this means I am a failure, or this means my coworker is a jerk who is out to get me. Those are just concepts you are pasting over the event.
Oh, I see. You are pulling the white sheet over the apple, just like Susan the art student. You are forcing yourself not to know what the criticism means.
Yes. You observe the interaction for itself, without the for me survival filter. The coworker's mouth opened, sound waves came out, and words were spoken. That is the reality.
Stripped of all the drama.
When you refuse to add the extra layer of meaning, you are forced to sit in the raw discomfort of the unknown. You don't know what happens next. You don't know what everyone in the room thinks of you.
Which is terrifying.
Very. But when you can sit in that unknown space without panicking, you open the door to genuine insight. You free yourself from the emotional turmoil that the conceptual self completely thrives on. You realize you are not the anger. You are the awareness observing the anger.
It is about breaking the automatic loop. Instead of instantly reacting, you pause and realize that your reaction is just a software program running to protect an invention.
A completely fabricated invention.
And by refusing to run the program, you get a glimpse of the real you. You experience the vast, quiet awareness that exists beneath all the noise and all the labels.
That is the being we were talking about earlier.
Which brings us to a final thought for you to carry into your week. What if, just for today, you stopped rehearsing to be yourself? The next time you feel a surge of anxiety or a desperate need to prove your identity in an argument, or the urge to curate how others perceive you, what if you simply allowed yourself the profound, terrifying freedom of not knowing who you are in that moment?
That is the ultimate invitation of the book. It is asking you to lay down the heavy, exhausting armor of your conceptual self and step out into the open, uncharted space of authentic being. It is scary, but it is the only place where true freedom actually exists.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this brief exploration of the book, feel free to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel for future episodes. New book insights are coming soon. See you next time.